Okay, here we're being asked to find the derivative of this big messy thing. And because the x terms and y terms are all mixed up together, we have to use implicit differentiation. And I'm going to start on the right side and then go back to the left side because the left side's a little more complicated. It requires the product rule. So starting on the right side here, the first term is 2x. And with our x terms, we just take the derivative the way we're used to. So the derivative of 2x is just 2. And then our next term, 3y, we take the derivative like we would for an x term. So that would be 3. But we add the term dy by dx to that. Okay, so this is 3 times dy by dx. That's the trick we have to use in implicit differentiation. Now, on this left side, I'm going to rewrite this first with powers here. So 3 times the square root of xy is the same thing as 3 times x to the 1/2 times y to the 1/2. Just the same thing. And now I'm going to use the product rule. I've got my 3x to the 1/2 times y to the 1/2. And the product rule says you take the first thing and multiply it by the derivative of the second thing. So the first thing is just 3x to the 1/2. The derivative of the second thing, well, I'm going to take this derivative here. I'm going to take that 1/2 and put it down in front. So there's my 1/2. And then y to the power minus 1, so that's a negative 1/2 power. And then I have, because this is a derivative of a y term, I have to multiply it by dy by dx. And now, while I'm running out of room here, the product rule says that term plus the derivative of the first term times the second term. So the derivative of the first term here, I'm going to take the 1/2. I get 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 times y to the 1/2. Okay, so let me rewrite this. So far, we've got 3x to the 1/2 times 1/2 y to the 1/2. Well, I'm just going to move the 1/2 down here and make this 3/2 x to the 1/2 y to the negative 1/2 dy by dx plus 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 y to the 1/2 equals 2 plus 3 dy by dx. All right, pretty complicated, but we're going to make it simpler. The next step, some of these terms have the dy by dx and some of them don't. We need to get all the dy by dx terms on the same side and all the other ones on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 3 dy by dx to bring it over to the left from both sides. And then I'm also going to subtract this whole thing from both sides to move it over to the right. Okay, once we've done all that, we're going to end up with 3/2 x to the 1/2 y to the negative 1/2 dy by dx minus 3 dy by dx on this side. And on the other side, we're going to have 2 minus 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 y to the 1/2. And now we're going to pull this dy by dx out like a factor. And this actually is what we're looking for. That signifies the derivative of this thing in terms of x. So we're solving for this. And that leaves us with 3/2 x to the 1/2 y to the negative 1/2 minus 3 equals 2 minus 3/2 x to the negative 1/2 y to the 1/2. And then we simply divide both sides by what's in the parentheses. Okay, so this obviously cancels. Our derivative, what we're looking for, equals that big thing. And we've got to do some more simplifying with that. So what I'm going to do first, just looking at this, I've got these fractions in here. I'm just going to multiply everything by 2 first, just to get rid of those fractions, because I don't like dealing with them if I don't have to. So 2 times 2 is 4. And this next term, negative 3/2, it's just going to be negative 3 x to the negative 1/2 y to the 1/2. And on the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing, multiply everything by 2. So really I'm multiplying by 2 over 2, which is multiplying by 1. So on the bottom I get 3 x to the 1/2, y to the negative 1/2, minus, and 3 times 2 is 6. Okay. Now, I'm going to do the next step. I'm going to seem to make this a little more complicated, but it's actually going to allow us to simplify it more. I'm going to rewrite these as fractions because I've got x to the negative 1/2 and y to the 1/2 here. So I'm going to have 4 minus 3 times the square root of y over the square root of x. So x to the negative 1/2 is that square root of x down here. Y to the 1/2 is that square root of y. Okay? And then on the bottom, I'm going to have 3 times the square root of x over square root of y, because the y is to the negative 1/2 down there, minus 6. Now I did that so that we could figure out how to simplify this more. And what I'm going to do now is multiply by 1 again, just like we multiplied by 1 up here. I'm going to multiply by a different version of 1, the square root of x times y, over the square root of x times y. Now, when I do that, what's going to happen is the square root of x here and here are going to cancel. The square root of y is going to multiply by the square root of y here. And so here, in this term, you'll just get 3y. So that'll get rid of that. And then over here, the square root of y's will cancel, and you just get 3x up here. But of course, you have to multiply the square root of xy by the 4 and by the negative 6. So when I do that, I get 4 square root of xy minus 3y over 3x minus 6 square root of xy. And that is my answer.